From Ukraine to Gaza, the world seems more divided and uncertain than it's been for years.
You can lower your voice just by speaking lower. How else would you lower your voice other than by lowering it? Yeah, that's how you lower your voice. Yeah. Okay.
Global powers and Western alliances have been put to the test. And amid the turmoil, China is rising to challenge the world order. Chinese President Xi Jinping, now in his third term in office, has high ambitions.
新征程上，我们的前途一片光明，但脚下的路不会是一片坦途。
Territorial.
Right, today. I'm sorry. I was going to say, it's a joke, okay? I was going to say, like, oh, they actually talk like that. I'm sorry. Okay.
Disputes have sparked fears of a larger conflict that could have regional and global implications.
You have approached the waters near Chinese Renai Reef,
including in the contested waters of the South China Sea.
That's your curse. Live and keep foul. Over.
And in Taiwan, where the threat of a Chinese military invasion looms larger. Meanwhile, at home, attacks on basic freedoms and human rights have become more severe, like in Xinjiang, where China continues to commit serious human rights abuses, some say a genocide, against the Uyghur Muslims. So, how far will China's autocratic vision reach? And will long-simmering tension with the West hit a boiling point? I'm Mehdi Hasan, and I've come here to London's legendary Conway Hall to go head-to-head with Victor Gao. He's Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization in Beijing, former interpreter for the late Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, and a proud defender of the People's Republic. I'll ask him about China's global ambitions and its aggressive crackdown on human rights and civil liberties. Tonight, I'll also be joined by three experts. Stephen Chan, a professor at the University of London's School of Oriental and African Studies. Rehan Assad, a human rights lawyer of Uyghur heritage. And Martin Jakes, author of the bestseller When China Rules the World and a political commentator on China. Victor Gao, thank you so much for joining me on Head to Head this evening here in London.
Thank you for having me.
China has upped its military spending. It's expanding its nuclear arsenal. It now has the biggest navy in the world. Chinese President Xi Jinping has said that the country's military should be capable of, quote, fighting and winning wars, and told the military to focus all your energy on fighting, improve your capability to win. Victor, who
are we fighting? Nice, okay.
Focus all your energy on fighting, improve your capability to win. Victor, who do you want to fight and who do you want to win against?
First of all, the Chinese military spending is the second largest in the world, but it is only a fraction of that of the United States. And China has a very difficult geopolitical situation. China has 14 land and neighboring countries altogether and 6 maritime nations for China. Therefore, China's defensive in nature, is not for fighting anyone except those who want to invade China or to launch.
I know what he's going to do. He knows he's talking to an English-speaking audience. The way that people like this get to soften their image on the world stage is to appeal to Western anti-American sentiment. That's what he's going to do. He's going to try to utilize the anger around the Iraq war and around American imperialism and around NATO and American exceptionalism and all that. He's going to utilize that to soften the image of China and the world today. Okay. That's the idea. Yeah.
A war against China. China's military spending is for peace rather than war. And war will be forced upon China, and China need to fight back.
You say it's for peace, but your neighbors don't agree. Your neighbors are pretty worried about you. You go through the list. Japan has sounded the alarm, saying your military buildup is very serious concern to them. India is worried about China on its border. And the Philippines president has warned that China is becoming a more pronounced and worrisome threat, he says. Those are the elected governments
of countries representing over 1.6 billion people in Asia. This is not the United States, this is not the West, this is your Asian neighbors saying, we're worried about China.
Mehdi, you mentioned three of the neighboring countries of China. Let's talk about each of them very quickly. Japan unconditionally surrendered not only to the United States, but also to China in 1945. And if you read very carefully the unconditional surrender document that Japan signed, then you will know how Japan needs to conduct its foreign affairs as well as its military troops with China and with all those countries that Japan unconditionally surrendered for. India is a great nation, and there is a territorial dispute between China and India, but that dispute was not created by China, neither was it created by India. It was created or left behind by the British Indian government.
That's a great history lesson. But right now, China, in 2024, the defense spending is going up by 7%, the most.
Very, very focused. This is the thing with Mehdi Hasan, is like, he's good at doing these things, and it makes good content if he's generally correct. But you can see there that, like, I guess he didn't have an answer to that particular point, so he just moved on. But before moving on, because he's in hit piece mode, because that's what he does, is he had to write it off. So like, that's a great history lesson. But it's like, yeah, just kind of, it's like such a good hand wave. Yeah. Yeah, well.
For 5 years, you've had 29 consecutive years of military expenditure growth, the most of any country in the world. Since 2022, China has increased military drills around Taiwan. It's escalated since the new Taiwanese president was inaugurated in May. China is not a fan of him. Since then, there's been almost daily activity involving China's warships, drones, cyber attacks against Taiwan. China is getting ready to invade Taiwan, isn't it?
There is only one China. Taiwan is part of China, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legitimate government for the totality of China. The exact status between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait is the unfinished civil war back in 1949. So ever since the beginning of the 1980s, China does not want to use a war to solve this unification problem.
You don't want to use a war, but you're surrounding it with ships, drones, cyber attacks, and making lots of threats.
Each time when the separatists in Taiwan want to push the edge of the envelope, they will come across more and more demonstration of the commitment of the Chinese nation to eventually achieve peaceful reunification or otherwise.
It's like one China, but also we want to reunify. Okay. The thing is, this is like, it's so similar to the Russian playbook as well, because they say every time the separatists take one step forward to push the envelope, whatever. And I'm guessing, I don't know that much, but like, what have the separatists done to push the envelope, to actually make China think like we actually need to assert something here? Because I know that Taiwan's public thing is that they, at least in name, are fine with the one China thing, but because like I think most of them want the status quo, which is de facto independence. Like they've got their own embassy, they've got all this other shit. Like they basically act like an independent state, but they're part of China, right? Yeah, because they don't want to rock the boat too much to end up in a fucking war or get invaded.
That's the litmus test.
Your defense minister said anyone who dares to pursue independence for Taiwan will be crushed into pieces and face destruction. Sounds like a truly peaceful guy.
That's a real statement, because if the separatists really want to push the edge of the envelope with the aid of some big country, for example, which wants to use Taiwan as a proxy in its own geopolitical rivalry against China, then wait until you see what will happen. Reunification will be achieved, and China is the only permanent member of the United Nations Security Council which has not yet achieved a complete reunification.
I'm always amused with this phrase reunification, because if it's one China, then clearly it's not one China. Clearly you're accepting by definition if you need to reunify it. They are doing their own thing. And why this obsession with Taiwan? You are a country of 3.7 million square miles, a population 60 times that of Taiwan, economy 20 times the size of Taiwan. Why are you obsessed with Taiwan? Why not just leave them be?
In terms of defending China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, any inch of land is not 1 inch too much. Any one single person is not one person too many. So we need to achieve reunification.
Even though they don't want to be part of your country. 12% of the people of Taiwan say they want to reunify with China. 12%.
Mehdi,
you can't get more unpopular than that in that.
Mehdi, it's not up to the people in Taiwan to decide about the one China policy.
You're very blunt in your disregard for people's views, freedoms, dignity. You say that you don't care about what they think. You also said in an interview with the French newspaper Le Monde, once we get the island back, we'll have to ask everyone's origins. Those who have Japanese ancestry, who you basically say constitute 10% of the population, will have to pledge loyalty to reunification in writing. Otherwise, we'll have to help them leave. You're basically calling for the ethnic cleansing of 2.3 million people in Taiwan.
No, you remember back in 1945, when Japan unconditionally surrendered, a lot of people in Taiwan who originally came from Japan, they were the rulers.
What's this talking about? I never heard this about, like, what, 10% of people in Taiwan are Japanese. Where does that come from? Is that real? Is it real, chat? I know most people in Taiwan identify as Taiwanese, but I don't know about the Japanese thing. Let's hear about the removal, the forced removal.
Of in Taiwan, when Japan unconditionally surrendered, a lot of people in Taiwan who originally came from Japan, they were the rulers of Taiwan at the time. They stayed behind because of the magnanimity of the Chinese nation. Now, several decades later, they account for about 10% of the local population in Taiwan. Now, if you really do your homework, you will realize that those die-hard Taiwanese separatists include many of these Japanese Chinese.
But okay.
Well,
but you would get rid of them. You would get rid of 2.3 million people.
No, after the reunification, everyone in Taiwan need to make a pledge whether they acknowledge there is only one China and Taiwan is part of China.
And if they don't make that pledge, they're out.
Those who pledge for the one China policy, they are local
By the way,
citizens.
you didn't say everyone. You said of Japanese descent. That is literally ethnic cleansing. You're picking people by their ethnic heritage.
Yeah, the ones who have to choose, who have to actually make their Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, I don't understand with the. It sounds like he's saying then that after the reunification, and then they'll be in a position where they get to make people pledge their loyalty to China. Doesn't that mean that they are, like, they do want to invade the place? I don't know. How else would you get that? Or this one, like a submission from the government? Okay.
Can do a loyalty test, otherwise they have to get out of the country they've been in.
It is not a loyalty
decades.
test. Here, for example, in Britain, if you are a British citizen.
Are you against China and its actually existing socialisms? If that's what actually existing socialism is, then yeah, sounds pretty cringe. Sounds like I don't want to be involved in that now.
You need to support the monarchy. You cannot say,
I'm standing in Britain. I don't support the monarchy. I don't like King Charles.
No, you cannot say. No,
I just said it.
He's probably, I think he means for, oh God, he's not even very good at propagandizing. He means for British citizens. If you're a foreigner and you come here and you want British citizenship, you will have to pledge loyalty to the crown. Yeah.
I literally just said it.
You cannot take any action to oppose the monarchy system.
But I don't have to sign a pledge saying I support King Charles.
No. Each country is different.
Yeah,
we are talking about China.
China is very different.
And China has one policy which is part of the constitution.
Which involves threatening people in Taiwan who don't want to be part of your country. Let's bring in our panel who are waiting to come in and join. Let's see what they think. I'm joined by Stephen Chan, professor at the University of London School of Oriental and African.
You can't revolt against the monarchy. Well, like in a fucking coup, no. But you can vote for a party that wants to abolish the monarchy. You can do that.
Studies. If you're in Taiwan today, how worried are you about a looming invasion?
I'm not in Taiwan today. I'm going to be visiting next year. I've been there 5 times in all of the great cities of Taiwan. And what I've noticed most conspicuously is that nobody I've talked to wants to rejoin or reunify with China because of their sense of freedom and their sense of self-determination. So I think that if you're going to say our sovereignty matters more than your desire for your own self-determination and freedom, then you're doing something that will not make you popular in Taiwan and you won't win the argument for Chinese sovereignty over the island.
Martin Jakes is here with us, author of the best-selling book, When China Rules the World. Martin, you've said in the past that China should not be seen through a solely Western lens. So, I agree with you, and there's issues there. But I began the show by asking Victor about Japan and India and the Philippines, separate to Taiwan, just the issues in the region. Do you think China is responsible for some of those issues, all of those issues, none of those issues?
Well, China's obviously involved inevitably in all of those issues. I think that actually, if you look at the rise of China over the last 30, 40 years, spectacular, biggest change we've ever seen in history, really. And inevitably, that is changing everything in the region, in the world. But the remarkable thing, I'd say, Mehdi, about China's rise is how, you quoted the military figures and so on, but China has not fought any wars since 1979. If you compare that with America, Europe, Japan, at the same stage of development, they were extremely aggressive.
Let's talk human rights, Victor. You've called...
It's a little bit unfair because obviously China has come in to the... First of all, they are in territorial conflict when it comes to Crimea, not Crimea, Kashmir. But it's also the fact that, like, China can't take military action against these countries that are around it, but because it can't. It's not allowed to, because fucking the American Navy and the American Army is in all these places stopping them. Like, yeah, South Korea, fucking Vietnam, or like going... but even then, they do what they can get away with. Even then, like, they try to make that claim over the South China Sea. So it's funny that, like, this guy's saying that they don't go to war, like, they don't do as much military fucking adventurism as America did with Afghanistan and Iraq and everything. But China does do whatever it can get away with. That's the thing. But the problem is that they can't get away with that much. What's stopping them in India? From what? Invading India? Or India's like a nuclear power, but... okay.
Uyghurs in China's Xinjiang province, your brothers and sisters. How do you feel about the fact that at least 500,000, some say more, of your brothers and sisters are being detained in camps by the Chinese government? That's 5% of the adult Uyghur population, one of the highest imprisonment detention rates in the world.
Mehdi, the Uyghurs are a proud ethnic group, one of the 56 ethnic nationalities in China. The Uyghurs, as far as I'm concerned, are my true brothers and sisters. I know many of them. I traveled to Xinjiang.
He's going to talk about terrorists, though, right? There's some terrorists in there. Swanstar, thanks for the £5. What impact would a Chinese invasion of Taiwan have on you making an Intercept New York Times video essay? I feel like the ship has sailed on that one, hasn't it? Fuck. We'll see. We'll see. Still thinking about it, you know, I'm doing that much. I think I wrote like 100 words and then realized that this is destroying me, yeah.
Regularly, and I talk to many of the Uyghurs. Now, if anyone is serious about accusing China of practicing mass injustice to the Uyghurs, give me the evidence.
Human Rights Watch say 500,000 people detained over the years in recent years.
You keep quote Human Rights Watch, and I tell you...
Do you know where they got those numbers from?
I don't
China.
know.
Can I tell you?
The leaked documents.
I thought you were the expert on... You've been to Xinjiang, you've spoken to Uyghurs. You never heard these numbers?
I do not know where did they get the source.
So their source is the Xinjiang High People's Procuratorate, which has published its own statistics, Xinjiang official body, which says it's convicted 540,826 people prosecuted in the region since 2017. The United Nations...
Indian and Chinese troops fight with sticks and bricks in a video. Is this because they didn't want a fucking nuclear war? Or why did... This is from 2022.
Take a look at this video. It's more than a year old.
Is this real, chat?
2021, from what we understand from an Indian military source. And here you have the Chinese and Indian militaries beating each other over barbed wire high in the Himalayas. We've been able to confirm that this took place around September 28th, 2021. This is according to an Indian military officer in the area of Arunachal Pradesh. The video goes on for some 2 minutes until the Chinese forces appear to withdraw behind a stone wall that they're at there, and then the Indians kind of declare victory. Why is this coming out now? Well, it does appear to have been leaked, and it came out and appeared on the internet just days.
What was it Einstein said? The Fourth World War will be fought with stones and sticks. He didn't realize that mutually assured destruction actually just has them skipping to the stones and sticks for World War III as well. That's so funny.
After the Indian Defense Ministry announced that there had been some kind of a scuffle in a different part of the disputed border between India and China on Friday, with injuries on both sides, none considered to be serious. But this was something that was highlighted by the Indian Defense Minister. Take a listen to what he had to say about this incident.
On December 9, 2022, People's Liberation Army troops tried to transgress the line of actual control in the Yangtze area of Tawang sector and unilaterally change the status quo. The Chinese attempt was contested by our troops in a firm and resolute manner.
Interesting. Okay.
Office for Human Rights looked at satellite footage. They say 10 to 20% of the population. Amnesty estimates 1 million people in camps. 500,000 is a conservative number.
Mehdi, if you quote that organization, please be assured that that organization has been completely discredited for the false information they came up with.
I love this game we're playing. You give me a source, I give you a source. They're discredited. They've said falsehoods.
Mehdi,
how can we? Let me ask you a question. How many people are in detention in Xinjiang? You give me a number.
Listen. If you look at Xinjiang,
you give me a number.
If you look at, I do not have the number.
Why not?
Yeah.
Hold on. You can't say it's not 500,000 and then say you don't have a number. I have a number. I have sources. How many people do you think are detained?
Let me give you my reason.
No.
I go to Xinjiang a lot. I traveled almost
So they're your brothers and sisters.
Xinjiang.
You go there a lot, but you can't tell me how many people are in detention.
Listen, they are happier. They enjoy their life. They enjoy their Muslim practices and traditions. Listen.
How many people are in detention, Victor?
Mehdi, let me be philosophical.
No, don't be philosophical. Be numerical.
No.
How many people are in detention? You said...
You and Destiny are both idiots, Lonerbox. You both advocated for Biden to stay in the race when he was behind in the polls by a lot. Now Harris is ahead in the polls. If it was for you, Trump would have won. I love it that people use new information that basically no one predicted to act as if they were onto something in the past. I think my position is that if Biden had one more event like that debate, then they should start thinking about getting someone else. But I also said, if you wanted to suggest someone else, who are you going to suggest? No one was saying Kamala. People weren't saying Harris. People were saying fucking like Gavin Newsom or like Oprah or Michelle Obama, because Kamala, before Biden stepped down, Harris was like negative 15 odd in the polls for approval rating. She was with the least popular vice president in the last 30 or 40 years. So Hasan had predicted. Based on what? What information did we have? Was it based on polling data? Absolutely not. The polling data suggested the opposite before Biden stepped down. I mean, if you want, what I can do is I can just kind of like throw a bunch of fucking guesses at the wall every now and then. And then, once or twice it'll be right, based on like no fucking priors, based on no foundational evidence. Fidel, based on what or get banned? Based on what or get banned? It's like if the Al Ali hospital turned out, if that strike turned out to be a JDAM, it would have been like, damn, he really knows the whistle of a JDAM, huh? No, it would have been a fucking incredibly lucky guess is what it would have been. I don't even know why you're coming at me with this. I even said if Biden had one more event like the debate with Trump, they should think about someone new. The problem I had was that people couldn't figure out who to put instead. There was a whole fucking divide over who people thought would be a preferential replacement for Biden. Anyway, I understand that you don't actually care about fucking like data or the way that reality works and the way that like accuracy of statements work over time, but okay, it's fine. Whatever. Makes you feel good. Hasan guessed something right once out of what, like 50 times when he gets things wrong. Okay. Even though it's very obviously wrong, but he just keeps going with it, like the fucking JDAM shit or the Alley Hospital. Okay.
No to 500,000. How about, okay, let's let 250,000.
Let me finish my point.
Nope.
I don't think anyone disagreed that Biden was struggling. I even said he wasn't like an ideal candidate because he couldn't fucking talk properly. But how would you fucking like, I don't know how you could have sat there before. I understand people could have sat there before this switchover happened and just been like, yeah, definitely. With Kamala, like with Harris, definitely. She's going to come in and it's going to be like leading in every other swing state within a couple of weeks. I'm sorry. No. That was quite unexpected. Okay. Majority Report made the point that the only person who could replace Biden was Harris due to campaign logistics. Yeah, that makes sense. But you understand that was a risk. That was a big risk to do that. Because it could have been the case that her vice presidential approval rating just stayed. And people just treated her the exact same way she was treated when she was vice president, in which case the Democrats would still be behind now, or maybe even behind by more. But anyway.
If you answer the question, you can't filibuster, Victor, on the show.
If anyone
how many
promotes
people do you
Xinjiang
think
independence, they will be dealt with in
Got
court.
it. How many of them are in court? How many?
So, I'm sorry, why am I letting this fucking retard stay in my chat with this fucking kind of brain? Hang on. Where are they? Okay, bye-bye. It's content. Okay. It's just fucking insufferable. Like, Tasty Trekkie, Tasty Trekkie, sorry, thanks for the 5 Australian. Where's the best place to grab a butter chicken near you? I have no fucking, what a strange question. Why would you ask me that? Why would you ask me such a stupid question? Okay.
The
very small minority.
So you don't have a number. You say they're all happy, but you won't let in independent investigators. You won't let in journalists to go there.
Why not?
They're not allowed to go there.
I will be happy to escort you to Xinjiang.
Really?
I can make that promise.
Really?
I will speak to the Chinese government.
Here's the problem,
to the
Victor.
Chinese
I don't
embassy.
want to escort. I don't want minders. I want to go freely. Will you allow that?
I do not make that decision.
Chinese Navy meows at U.S. military aircraft in South China Sea. What's this?
Station calling U.S. military aircraft. Please identify yourself.
This is the Chinese Navy. This is the Chinese Navy. This is the Chinese terror sky. Please go away quickly in order to run judgment.
I am a United States military aircraft conducting lawful military activities outside national airspace. I am operating with due regard as required.
Oh, what's this? Show chat this clip. Oh,
under international law.
Let's see.
Okay, I'm gonna put this side by side. I want you to fucking understand something, okay?
To a seat. Ding, 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 ding. Boom. Okay. Missile launch. Pshin, boom.
So that is a JDAM called on.
Missile launch. Pshin, boom.
Do you think that seems similar to one another?
Okay. Good memes. Good edit.
Oh! A moment ago, you were going to make all sorts of interruptions. Suddenly I said, let me go freely and speak to Uyghurs freely. Can I do that with no minders?
I'll be happy.
No Chinese government escort.
I will be happy to make your case.
Oh, just now you said you'd organize it. Now we're about make a case.
Make
you can't
a case.
guarantee. Rehan Assad is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, international human rights lawyer. You are a Uyghur who, Victor says, brothers and sisters. Your literal brother has been held in an internment camp in Xinjiang since 2016, I believe. Rehan, tell us what happened to your brother and what is your response to Victor, to what you've heard, and what is the latest on your brother, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, my brother Akbar Assad is a prominent tech entrepreneur. In fact, your own media outlet called him a bright star in the tech world. Right before his detention, he was invited on a state gala dinner, and then he disappeared. How could you explain that?
Mehdi, again, in China, we have about 20 Muslim ethnic groups. You need to ask one question. Why the extremism existed mostly among the Uyghur communities? Because there are extremists among the Uyghur community who want to separate Xinjiang away from China.
Has your brother been convicted of any crime?
Supported by CIA and other Western organizations.
Okay.
You know, it does make me wonder. It does really make me wonder if how far left people who support China, how they let this particular dialogue line work on them. Basically saying they're Muslim extremists and terrorists, and that's why we need to be incredibly punitive and restrictive and invasive when it comes to Xinjiang. I don't understand how that gets people get away with that. To a leftist audience, that's so strange.
The real truth.
Hold on.
To the Kazakhs, they don't support.
Has your brother been
Xinjiang
convicted of a crime?
According to UN, there's no trial has taken place. He just forcibly disappeared. Actually, it amounts to enforced disappearance. But according to the Chinese government, he committed a crime of inciting ethnic discrimination while he is systematically oppressed. And when I challenged that decision, because under the Chinese law, if you're committed with the alleged crime, that you have 3 years sentence, but he got 15 years. How do you justify that? Then they switch the crime. So how do you even explain this is a rule of law?
It's quite weird that this audience is so much more tame than they were with Benny Morris, if you noticed that. Maybe he'll get more fucking aggressive because we're only 16 minutes in, but that's kind of funny.
Law system, you mentioned that if people are not pro-independent, then they're fine in Xinjiang. My brother by no means is pro-independent. In fact, your media outlet, daily media, invited him to exchange information. Did he split the country when he visited Beijing?
Are you okay with the treatment of her brother?
In front of this very august body, let me make several very brief points. The real crime involved by some of the Uyghur people are agitating for Xinjiang independence. They violate the One China policy. Now, separate from that, you know, different communities may find their own different problems which need to be sorted out in the course of law. And I hope...
But our brother's been detained for 8 years.
Well, I do not know the charge. I hope I can help you to really look at the case, at the accusation against him.
Yeah,
I hope your brother is not guilty of inciting for separatism of Xinjiang. If that is the case, then let the law take its course.
Well, your media outlet called him a model citizen who is a promoter of ethnic unity in Xinjiang.
Have you been able to speak to your brother or see him?
No, not at all. Like, you know, for 8 years, he's forcibly disappeared. Up until like last month, for the first time, my parents saw him. What kind of justice system is that? You're making a mockery
You're not
of the
just
rule of
detaining
law.
them, Victor. They're being tortured. Numerous testimonies the UN has collected. Are you okay with that?
Mehdi, when you talk about torture, think about Guantanamo Bay prisons.
Oh, my word.
Rather than in Xinjiang. Xinjiang is a place of great peace and stability.
The accounts of detainees include being beaten with batons, electric batons, while strapped in a so-called tiger chair. 158 being subjected to interrogation with water poured on their faces, prolonged solitary confinement, forced to sit motionless on stools for long periods. Like this, you're okay with this? This is the proud China?
Probably you are reading the case in Iraq committed by the American soldiers.
I'm reading the UN report.
This is the thing, it's like deflect everything to America.
August 2022, from detainees who came out of camps in Xinjiang. Your brothers and sisters, but
Why
these
is it
brothers and
okay if
sisters you don't
America
seem to
does
give a
it?
damn about.
Even though like everyone opposes Guantanamo Bay. Yeah. I'd love to know why Guantanamo... Obama did say he would get rid of Guantanamo Bay, but he didn't. Why did he... Is there any reason for that? Do we know why he didn't? Because I don't know if it's particularly popular. If you're a president, you want to be popular, obviously. Like having that next to your name would be quite helpful. The Supreme Court. Prevented by Congress. Congress or the Supreme Court? Hang on. It must not be easy to close. Well, I mean, if you're a president, you don't, like, executive power doesn't really get you that far. That's how the American system's designed. But why didn't Guantanamo? Obama. We really wanted to get it closed, but we didn't want a political firestorm. A large part of it was the Defense Department. They were against closing it, and they still are. So this makes it sound like they could have gotten rid of it.
Hardest.
JT Chapman sucks as a dad. Jesus. Second thought would sacrifice his dad for Xi Jinping or his whatever. Fucking hell. That is slightly ad hominem. Okay. Bit unnecessary. Why has Obama been unable to close Guantanamo Bay? 5 reasons. Congress recently passed a law banning Guantanamo's closure. Because he was it only 2 years where Obama had a majority in Congress? Is it 2 years or I don't think it was 4 years. I think it was 2 years, right? Before he lost his majority in Congress. Yeah. Congressional Republicans have repeatedly argued that releasing or transferring prisoners poses a threat to national security and have fought against the installation's closure. Wow. In the larger defense bill that the president signed into law in November, congressional Republicans included a measure opposed by Obama that prohibits the use of funds to close or abandon the prison, transfer detainees to the United States, or build or modify facilities to house detainees in the United States. So there's a national security, a defense bill, but Republicans had to include a measure. So they basically did the Republican thing. Okay. The restrictions contained in this bill concerning the detention facility at Guantanamo are, as I've said in the past, unwarranted and counterproductive, he said in a statement as he signed the bill into law. The remaining detainees are some of the most difficult to relocate. Will this be because of statelessness or because of their home country won't take them or not been approved for transfer or release? How secure? How fucking dangerous are these people? It is like 100. Yeah, it was 100 people. Yeah. His former White House counsel resigned amid criticism over the plan to close the prison. Thawed relations with Cuba haven't eased the debate. They've had their military base there since 1903, when it signed a deal with the Cuban government, allowing it to construct a base in exchange for an annual payment. Even as ties between the two nations resume, experts think the U.S. military won't want to surrender the naval base because of its strategic location and proximity to the Caribbean. Well, this isn't anything to do with getting rid of prisoners, though. This is just to do with keeping a hold of the island. The Bao Bergdahl affair. It was an exchange for this one person for 5 Taliban detainees, angered Republicans, put transfers in a more unfavorable light among opponents. He was released so Bergdahl was released after 5 years in captivity in exchange for 5 detainees who were being held at Guantanamo Bay. Following the swap, Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham said he was very disturbed about the policy of releasing prisoners from Guantanamo Bay while the war is still raging, saying the decision undercut the war effort. Senator Saxby Chambliss, so during the war, they think it was, okay. Senator Saxby Chambliss, said the prisoner trade is one of the reasons why a number of us have been so strongly opposed to the release of individuals there. The argument is carried over to the 2016 presidential campaign trail, where Republican frontrunner Donald Trump has berated the swap. Shambliss. What a stupid name. We get a traitor, a no-good rotten traitor like Bergdahl. They get 5 killers that they most wanted in the whole world. Okay. So, Congress, optics, and the war, apparently. Okay.
How do you know any torture happened in Iraq, out of interest?
I know.
How?
I know for sure.
How?
I talked to the Iraqi ambassador in Beijing.
Okay.
He wept in front of me.
Damn.
And I'm sure Rehan's parents have wept, and you don't seem to care.
And I hope you will tell your brother, be a staunch supporter of one China policy, be a proud
I cannot tell him he's in prison.
Wait, why is the audience so much more tame towards this than they were towards Benny Morris? It's so weird, anyway.
Can't tell him because she can't speak to him because you deny access, Victor.
China.
Victor, she can't speak to him. Are you going to arrange it? Are you going to arrange a visit now?
I'd be happy to help you to make a phone call.
There's a lot of promises being made here, guys. You should follow up on this afterwards.
You are all witnesses.
We are witnesses, indeed. Let me bring in Martin Jakes. Martin, when you hear people say, basically, there's no torture, everyone's making it up, there's nobody in detention, come on, that's ridiculous, is it not, Martin?
Well, I mean, I don't know all the details of the situation in Xinjiang, but clearly there's been a big problem for a long time in Xinjiang in terms of the relationship between the Uyghur and the Han. And that came to a head in 2009 when there was a demonstration and 200 people were killed.
Because it's a different audience, maybe? Because this ambassador has media training? Well, he's being so much more shameless than Benny Morris was. I know what, but if you guys are confused, I'm asking that question rhetorically. The reason this audience is more hostile to Benny Morris than they are to this guy is because it's Al Jazeera, right? And the reason Israelis call lots of things anti-Semitism that don't look like anti-Semitism, this is actually one of the things that might come under. It comes under the fact that, like, Jewish people, for whatever reason, are held to a very different standard. When you have a historian who has said a couple of yikesy takes in newspaper articles versus this, like, Chinese political guy basically telling someone that she just needs to tell her brother to be more loyal to China so he gets out of being in jail for 8 years for not being loyal enough to China, like in a concentration camp. So okay, that's why people call it anti-Semitism, just so you know.
By the Uyghur, and then the Chinese inflicted the same kind of damage on the Han. So this is a deep problem in my view, and it's not easily passed off. There's no other problem in China of this kind.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people consider
this is a big problem.
That's a pretty big problem.
It's a very big problem for them, yeah. But the other thing, Mehdi, I'd say, is that the point that's being made about separatism is true. That I think that the 30 million Muslims in China, the Hui is the biggest single minority. Yeah. They are completely integrated. But the problem in Xinjiang is clearly the issue of separatism.
Stephen, let me ask you this question. Victor's making a lot of promises tonight about me going to Xinjiang and Rehan going to Xinjiang and everyone's going to be fine. How safe, how okay are you with visiting China? How free do you think you are when you go to China?
When I go to China, and I haven't been for some time, I'm watched almost 24/7. There's always someone I can spot is trailing me. So I know when my hotel room is upgraded suddenly to a spacious suite, I'm now in a place which is bugged. So someone who's a mild critic and a scholarly critic like me doesn't feel safe in China. By contrast, I feel safer in Taiwan.
Victor, when you hear Stephen say he doesn't feel that safe going to China, prefers going to Taiwan, when we talk about freedom of speech, for example, in China, I live in the United States of America, where I can say that Donald Trump is hypothetically, an orange-faced narcissist. I also live here in the UK, I'm British. Here you have Rishi Sunak.
An orange-faced narcissist, damn. Get him, Mehdi. Don't hold back.
The former Prime Minister was called a pint-sized loser by a Labour politician. No one in China has that kind of freedom. to talk about their government, to talk about President Xi Jinping in that way. You can't say anything like that.
Can't call him orange-faced.
Say anything like that because you know what will happen to you when you go home. You know what will happen to your family. That's what China is.
Mehdi, if you do anything, write anything, email or chat to your friends about taking anything action against, let's say, Prime Minister of Britain, President of the United States,
I didn't say that.
You'll be dealt with
That's
very
not what I
swiftly.
said. Victor, you're a master of straw men. That's not what I said. I said Rishi Sunak was called a pint-sized loser. Would you call Xi Jinping a pint-sized loser?
Mehdi, each country has different sensitivities. In UK,
so you're admitting you can't criticize the Chinese government?
No. You can criticize the government if you are positive in your attitude.
You can criticize the government if you're positive.
Yes.
Is that the new philosophy?
No, if you can come up with your...
You've got to come up with nice insults.
No.
What then?
Constructive advice.
Constructive advice.
For example,
I'm loving
in dealing with the aging population, what should be the government do? What should this governor do?
But you can't say the president's lied. He's a liar.
No, he will be dealt with very swiftly in China. You cannot say that.
That is the most honest thing you've said tonight. Yes. Victor Gao, we're going to take a...
That's funny. Trekkie, thanks for the 5 Australian. Obama was stalled by Supreme Court and Congress refusing funding. Okay.
Break. That's part one of...
The audience doesn't give a fuck, though. They're just sitting here, like, vibing.
Ahead with our guest, Victor Gao. In part two, we'll be talking about President Xi Jinping. We'll be talking about the issue of dictatorship, and we'll hear from our very patient audience here in London's Conway Hall. Welcome back to Head on Al Jazeera English. My guest this week is Victor Gao, former interpreter to the late Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, vice president of the Center for China and Globalization in Beijing, and an ardent promoter of the People's Republic. We're also joined by an expert panel here in London's Conway Hall and a live audience who we're going to hear from shortly. Victor, before we get to the audience, in 2019, on this very show, I asked the question, is Xi Jinping gearing up to be president for life, dictator-in-chief? I mean, he's the most powerful leader of China since Mao. He's abolished presidential term limits. He's now in his third 5-year term as president. So I'll ask again tonight, is he now president for life, a true dictator?
For the record, first of all, Chinese President Xi Jinping will never be president for life. There will be a time limit. When it will be handled according to the Chinese legal system and constitution. Secondly, there is no dictator in China. Why? Because dictatorship simply doesn't work. Democracy means modernization. And how can you explain profound...
What a fucking random sentence. Because dictatorship doesn't work. Democracy means what? Okay.
Transformation of China over the past 45 years in China, if you have dictatorship or authoritarian rule. No. Every leader in China will be put into a team, and teamwork will be much more important than individualism.
Victor. Maybe previous presidents did, maybe Jiang Zemin or Hu Jintao. Everyone knows Xi Jinping has centralized power, consolidated power, got rid of term limits. You say there's a way to get rid of him, but there isn't actually a legal way to get rid of him. He's in power for life, and he likes being a dictator. Why are we pretending?
Mehdi, allow me to remind you, the Communist Party of China, which is the ruling party of China, has a membership of up to 100 million people. Yeah. It's well structured. Every province, every state-owned enterprise, etc., will have a party cell.
There's no division or debate within the Chinese Communist Party.
Listen to me. No single person in China can dictate to a population of 1.4 billion people and 100 million membership of the Communist Party of China.
Okay, let's test that.
That's a mission impossible.
Let's test that proposition. The president won a vote last year. Won a vote. I'll put that in air quotes. Do you know the tally of last year's presidential vote in favor of Xi Jinping by the National People's Congress? Part of that structure you just advertised to us. What was the vote? Can you tell our audience here?
I think it's up to about 100%. That doesn't...
2,952 to 0.
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
Could you not find a few people just to make it look a little even? 1 or 2?
Mehdi, it's not surprising. It's not surprising.
2,952 to 0. That's one-man rule, my friend.
In the Chinese system, everyone supports the Chinese president.
You just told us 10 seconds ago there's this huge system, a big party, one guy, and then you're like, oh no, but everyone supports him. 0 votes against him. One person out of 3,000 couldn't say, Xi Jinping, not my guy. One.
What if he is the guy for all the Communist Party of China? You
What
never
if?
know.
Well, if that's the case, then your entire first answer is redundant because it doesn't matter if there's 100 million people.
It's also that number, like 2,000 voters. It's like, bro, it's like a British election in the 1750s or something. Fuck.
They all have to follow the leader.
No, he does command huge respect among the Chinese people as well as
You
in
say
the ruling
respect, I
party.
say fear. Do you know how many names were on the ballot papers that were given in 2013? How many names were on the ballot paper when they went to choose the president? Can you tell our audience?
I think there is only one candidate.
Yeah.
Bro.
There were no other names. That's a real secure leader. A guy who knows he has the confidence of his people. You get to vote, but only for me, and none of you can actually vote against me.
Mehdi, we do not want to end up in a situation with 6 prime ministers in 80 years.
Yeah. So you prefer a dictatorship?
No, we prefer a system that works for the benefit of the Chinese people.
I've not said a word about what works or not. You got great economic growth.
Look at the
But you're a
economic
dictatorship.
growth. There is no dictatorship, Mehdi.
You just
Do
admitted
you want me to
that there's no name on the ballot paper, no votes against him, and they all just follow him. That's a dictatorship.
Mehdi, when you have
You
a
can say
succession
my name
of
multiple
the
times,
king after
but
the
it's a
queen,
dictatorship.
How many candidates are there on the ballot paper?
How many? What? King and queen?
When the king succeeds the queen,
Yes.
how many candidates are there on the ballot paper?
How many?
Our monarchs don't have any fucking power, you dick. It's all ceremonial. Our monarchs don't come up with legislation. Okay.
How many?
Does that make Britain not a democracy?
Well, you're asking the wrong guy. I'm a Republican, so I think we should be a full democracy and get rid of the monarchy. And I can say that here. You can't say that in China.
Oh, he just completely, not very, it's probably not the smartest argument. You should probably clarify that the monarch in the UK doesn't really have that much, doesn't have any power. But, okay.
Take any action against that?
Yes, I can, actually. I can go out on the street, I can hold up a placard and say, let's get rid of King Charles. I can create a whole
You can vote for a party that wants to abolish the monarchy. You can do that as well.
protest outside Buckingham Palace.
Can they strike that? So they can, but they never do. Like they have powers that they haven't used for the last 300 years because everyone knows it would be a constitutional crisis if they did. But in practice, no, they don't use, like, they don't have any power. Yeah.
You can't do that in China. You can't even put one other person's name on a ballot paper. That's how insecure your leader is.
Mehdi, I'm a lawyer. In my capacity as a lawyer, I can give you a long list of things that you cannot do regarding the monarchy here in Britain.
I'm not debating that. I'm saying that we have an elected government. We get to choose. We get to swap 6 prime ministers, God help us.
You want to know what powers the monarchy actually has that they could use but don't? They can... So a bill that gets passed through Parliament has to get royal assent. So they can take any law and say, nah, I'm not going to let it go through. Fuck you. They haven't done that in over 300 years. All right? They can dissolve Parliament or prorogue Parliament. They haven't done that in hundreds of years. So yeah, it's like they can do, they can basically do fuck all. But they still do have those powers on paper, yeah. It's not even on paper because the Constitution is not fucking written down. They have those powers, yeah.
But we get to pick. Everyone in this room who's a citizen gets to pick.
Listen, you end up with your mini budget, which bankrupt the whole country.
But that's an honest answer, Victor. But Victor, I admire that because that's an honest answer. Your answer is, it's a dictatorship that works.
Bankrupt the whole country. I love it. The propagandists. They just have to, everything has to be so fucking exaggerated. Yeah, okay.
At least say that.
No.
No, you can't. You keep dodging. One minute you say, it's not a dictatorship. Then I show you it is. You say, but it's working. We've got growth.
Mehdi,
pick one.
Mehdi, if that is your point, I will seriously urge you to do more homework about how the Chinese system works.
Okay, let's talk about the Chinese system, because I did a little bit of homework. Did you know that Xi Jinping put his name in the Constitution? That's weird.
Well,
the leader of the country put his own name in the Constitution.
That's weird. That's like he did a JD Vance. Oh no. He's using the JD Vance word. Fast and bulb is thanks to $5. As an American, I think the monarchy is cringe, but you can't be a good person and not think that the coronation anthem isn't an all-time banger. You know what? There's something about the monarchy that, I don't know if it's because of the monarchy, but at least we don't have fucking January 6th here. We have peaceful transfers of power, so... Really, who's the more secure democracy?
Constitution while he's president. No one's done that since Mao. None of the other Chinese presidents, not Hu Jintao, not your old boss Deng Xiaoping, none of them did it. Did they? Or am I wrong?
It's wrong.
Who did it?
The Chinese constitution has been most frequently amended compared with any other country.
Am I wrong about what I just said with my little bit of
Mao's
homework?
name was put into the constitution.
That's what I said.
Deng's name was put into the
Not
constitution.
while he was president.
And Jiang Zemin's name was put into the constitution.
Not while they were sitting presidents, and you know that. Tell our crowd here, not while they were president. They didn't do it themselves.
According to my recollection, each of
Not
these
your
names
recollection.
were put into the constitution
Not while they were sitting
while
president.
the leaders were still alive.
Okay, so I'm right.
Mao
Not while they were president.
Deng
I love the little slip.
and-
Even Donald Trump, one of the great narcissists of our time, has not proposed yet putting his name into the US Constitution. If you are the president of China, you're elected without any opponents, no names on the ballot paper, 0 votes against you, you put your name in the Constitution, 6-year-olds are taught about Xi Jinping thought in primary school. That is not just a dictatorship, that is a cult of personality.
I don't think China believes in personal.
So why are
personality
6-year-olds
cult.
learning about Xi Jinping thought? I'm pretty sure no 6-year-olds learned about Liz Truss's mini budget. Victor.
The Chinese system is such that once you orient the country in one direction, everyone follows the suit.
Do they follow or are they ordered to follow? They don't follow out of choice.
No, it's like a vehicle with 4 wheels. Here, you have 4 wheels aligned in different directions, opposing directions. In China, the 4 wheels of a car all lined up in one direction.
Well, they don't.
Going forward.
Well, they don't, Victor. Let me give you an example.
That's the Chinese way of doing it.
Former Foreign Minister Qin Gang was removed from his post and has not been seen in public since June 2023. A few months later, China's Defense Minister, General Li Shangfu, disappeared from public view for months, has now been expelled from the party, accused of corruption. That's at least 2 ministers that disappeared just in the last year. With apologies to Oscar Wilde, to lose 1 minister might be unfortunate. To lose 2 is careless, is it not?
He's doing the importance of being earnest. The line he's referencing there is actually it's a guy talking to his betrothed's mother, the mother of his betrothed. Is that what his fiance? Or no, his love interest. Or, and and he tells the mother that he lost both of his parents, like they both died. And she says, to lose one parent is tragic, and to lose both sounds like carelessness. That's a good line. She mogs him. Anyway.
That's at least 2 ministers that disappeared just in the last year. With apologies to Oscar Wilde, to lose 1 minister might be unfortunate. To lose 2 is careless, is it not?
Do you know the point I want to make? This means China is really merciless in dealing with corruption of all kinds, even among the
Your
highest
foreign
ranks.
minister and defense minister. Imagine Antony Blinken and Lloyd Austin just disappeared tomorrow. We don't know where they are. We've never seen them again. That's not normal, Victor.
Listen, corruption is rampant in
How do we know
China.
they're corrupt? They just disappeared. Where's the trial?
Allow
Where's the
me
trial,
to finish my point. Corruption of all kinds in China need to be dealt with.
So where's the trial?
Mercilessness.
So where's the trial? Where's the trial of the former foreign minister?
I think this is when she's like interrogating him. Do you smoke? Well, yes, I must admit I smoke. I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you? 29. A very good age to be married at. I have always been of opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know? I know nothing, Lady Bracknell. I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income? Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year. In land or investments? In investments chiefly. That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land. I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of it. A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country. Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back whenever I like, at 6 months' notice. Lady Bloxham? I don't know her. Oh, she goes about very little. She is a lady considerably advanced in years. Ah, nowadays there's no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square? 149. The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could be easily altered. Do you mean the fashion or the side? Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics? Well, I'm afraid I really have none. I'm a liberal unionist. Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living? I've lost both my parents. To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who is your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy? I'm afraid I don't really know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I had said I'd lost my parents. It would be nearer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found. Found? The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of very charitable and kindly disposition, found me, and gave me the name of Worthing, because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort. Where did the charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket for this seaside resort find you? In a handbag. A handbag? Yes, Lady Bracknell. I was in a handbag. A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact. It's a good play. Anyway.
We don't even know where he is.
Mehdi, those things you don't know doesn't mean doesn't happen.
Where is the trial for this man you're just accusing of corruption?
Qinggang was my good friend for more than 20 years.
Where is he then?
He is involved in corruption.
Where is he?
And he is dealt with very swiftly.
Where is he, Victor?
Regardless of
He's your good friend. You don't know where he is.
Regardless
where
of the
is the former foreign minister of China?
Position.
This is not a hard question. We're not asking where Rehan's brother in the middle of Xinjiang is that you can dodge. Where is the former foreign minister of China who disappeared? And by the way, he wasn't accused of corruption. The spokesman came out and said he has health reasons. Then corruption came later, by the way. Where did he go, your friend?
It's almost at the end of the scene. In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag? In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own. The cloakroom at Victoria Station? Yes, the Brighton line. The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society. May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness. I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce, at any rate, one parent of either sex before the season is quite over. Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell. Me, sir? What is it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing. I'm sorry. That's good.
That means there is a process, and the process
starts with one lie, that he's ill, and then the next lie is he's corrupt.
He may be ill. You never know.
I mean, he's probably ill after he's been in a Chinese prison.
He may be ill now.
Yeah,
you never know. But,
exactly.
But at least
where is he?
lost his job
Victor, where is he?
of his corruption.
Last question.
That's the point.
Where is he?
He's somewhere in China. You will never see him. He is among the 1.4 billion people.
And no, it's not just him. There's many other people who have disappeared. The previous defense minister disappeared. The Ministry of Industry and Technology disappeared. The former Interpol president disappeared. In China, you just disappear if they don't like you. That's the rule of law in China.
I'm so happy they disappear, because if they keep doing their job, they will bring greater disaster.
Victor, be careful what you wish for, because everyone's watching this show, and if you get something wrong tonight, maybe you disappear.
If I disappear, I hope you will bail me out.
I'd have to find you first, and China's apparently a big country. I want to bring in Stephen Chan, professor at the University of London School of Oriental African Studies. Stephen, Xi Jinping's policy...
Okay. He's just making memes out of it. He wants the West to bail him out, or Al Jazeera, apparently. Gerald Freiburn for the $9.99. Thanks very much. You should look up Carl Schmitt, Nazi legal philosopher. Chinese state officials have been really interested in his theories. I always hear people talk about Carl Schmitt. Honestly, don't give much of a fuck. But I know Philosophy Tube's quoted him a whole bunch, but yeah.
Policies. His crackdown on dissidents. I mean, China was never a democracy. Other presidents were also dictatorial. But can we agree that Xi Jinping is on a different level when it comes to repression at home, the consolidation of power? I assume you disagree with Victor's description of him as part of a, I don't know, four-wheel car all driving in the same direction happily.
He certainly consolidated his power. He is a very, very strong president. And I think that the real test of all of this is how China has treated Hong Kong, with the increasing clampdown on dissent and free expression of opinion when they were meant to have a degree of freedom and a one country, two system way of approaching life. We can't see any evidence of vibrant debate in China. And I'd note that one of the great disappointments of my life.
Holy heck, by the way, 1,200 viewers across both the streams. That's crazy, chat. What the fuck? Like the stream, it doesn't cost you anything. Ooh.
When I read Chinese academic works, everyone toes a party line. No one does independent research to publish, as it were, anything critical of, for instance, not just Xi Jinping, anything critical about Chinese foreign policy.
Well, they might disappear.
They might not get promoted in any case.
Rehan Assad is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council International Human Rights Law. Rehan, in part one, we talked in depth about the repression against the Uyghurs and your own personal situation. In 2014, Xi Jinping privately called for an all-out struggle, quote, against terrorism and to show absolutely no mercy after a visit to Xinjiang. How much do you believe Xi Jinping is driving what's happening in Xinjiang? How much do you think he's responsible for the repression in China?
Well, the matter of the fact is that all of which happened under current administration. Right? So many scholars are attributing to him. It happened under his reign. He's the one who said absolutely no mercy.
And hey, if you donate money, he'll read your comment and immediately dismiss it as stupid or pointless. I would never do that. What the fuck is wrong with you? What a stupid, dishonest cunt thing to say. What the fuck? All right.
Stamping out roots and branches of the Uyghurs, breaking out their connection. And these are the policies implemented under his leadership. So it's very hard to separate Xi Jinping from the current policy, Xinjiang.
Martin Jakes, author of the best-selling book, When China Rules the World. You heard Victor talk about, well, we can't be a dictatorship because we're doing so well, the economy is doing amazing, we don't have Liz Truss mini-budgets, etc. But then you get into the debate about, can dictatorship and growth coexist? Do you need to have democracy to go alongside that? And I think about the pandemic, Martin, and I think about China's reaction to the pandemic. Is that where the dictatorship, the lack of transparency, the disappearances caught up with China? Because, of course, there was a black hole in China in terms of China's censorship methods, its draconian policies, the zero COVID policy, the crackdown, which led, some people say, to over 1 million, 2 million deaths. We saw protests in buildings.
How overrated is the Chinese economy? I don't know. I don't know much about it. I know that they recovered a fuck ton of jobs really, really quickly. During the recession, because the state can basically tell banks to lend money and no one can say no. like after bailouts and things. But I remember hearing that they actually inflated their GDP growth for a while. Did they do that? Was that real? I think it was real. But I don't know how they were caught doing that, or if there's any contesting to that. Nathan E, thanks for the $2. This message is stupid and pointless. True. Michael Z, thanks for the $5. I dare you to dismiss this comment as stupid or pointless. Maybe for another $5 I will. Who knows? For free? No. Hell no. I'm not going to say anything about that comment. No comment.
People screaming, was that a moment where China actually collided with reality and said, this system, it can't survive long term?
Well, I beg to differ on the question of the pandemic, because actually for 2 years, 2020 and 2021, actually China did, under the circumstances, extremely well and well outperformed the West. And the reasons for it are quite complicated. You've got to take into account a very different kind of system. Now, one of the problems with the discussion, I think, so far on this question is that the country, it sounds as if the country doesn't work. If you say dictator, despot, all these kind of words.
I didn't say that, but
no,
that's how
but if, and you say, not you personally, and one says there's no discussion. I think this is absolutely untrue. So what we're presenting here is not an accurate picture. It's
not about accurate picture, it's about balance, right?
Yeah,
so I don't deny what you're saying, but you're British. You would think it was a political earthquake if the Foreign Secretary and the Defense Secretary disappeared in the space of 6 months. Not arrested, disappeared, surely.
Yeah, and there is something. Look, Qingong was a friend of mine as well. And I don't know what's happened to him. And I think it is odd. Certainly to our eyes, it's weird that this can happen. But I think that the thing is that we've got to try and get beyond cardboard cutouts when we're talking about China and understand how it really works.
Thing?
Okay. Let's bring in our audience who've been waiting here in London's
Hello,
Conway
thanks
Hall.
for the $3. Victor Gao is just Chinese Joseph Goebbels, would probably sacrifice his kids for Xi. Okay, everyone's sacrificing their kids apparently in your world. Jesus.
Go to the lady there on the fourth row. Yes, you.
My question is, as a dissident from Hong Kong, knowing that I can express freely in Hong Kong or in the UK without risking other people in trouble, I also know that you just now made claims about there's free speech in China, and it's possible to criticize the Chinese government just now again. Can you please demonstrate that free speech and tell us what are Xi Jinping's two worst mistakes in the past 5 years? If you can demonstrate to us that it's okay to criticize Xi Jinping, the Chinese government, and China, or even just say Xi Jinping kind of resembles Winnie the Pooh, would be good enough for me. Thank you.
Victor, do you want to take that question?
Well, thank you. I would say China need to make more prompt, take more prompt actions in dealing with the dramatic aging population in China and the dramatic demographic decline.
Do you think Xi Jinping's to blame for not being fast enough on aging?
No, I think the whole Chinese government, including the Central Committee, State Council, local government, need to take actions quickly to reverse that dramatic aging population problem and demographic decline.
We're not going to get a criticism out of you. Let's go back to the audience. Let's go to the gentleman here in the tie. Yes, you?
Yeah, Alex, sorry, Alex Vines from Chatham House. My question is debt. So there's been very bad riots, for example, that's been in the news in Kenya. Some of that debt that's been causing the problem is owed to China. So the question is, how is China going to handle the increasing pressures for debt cancellation? At least 17 African countries are in particular distress this year. Thank you.
I understand the Chinese debt in these large-scale connectivity projects is only a small portion of the overall national debt, because they own debt to the United States, to Britain, to the international financing institutions, etc. They not just own debt to China, but to many other countries. That's the reality. Secondly, there is accusation about the death trap, which is completely wrong and false. Because if you want to do connectivity project, major project finance things, you need to have equity as well as debt. Debt is an indispensable part of the packaging.
Okay, let's go back to the audience. I say I'll take this gentleman at a time, then go to the back, then we'll go to that gentleman there. You next, after this one.
My name is Sonam Frazi. I would like to ask you a question on Tibet.
Oh.
I was born in Tibet before the Chinese invasion of Tibet. Unfortunately, 1.2 million Tibetans have died since, and we have been made refugees. My question is, Tibet, after 74 years of Chinese rule, is still under lockdown. No journalists, no individual tourists, even Tibetans are not allowed to see their families. What is China afraid of to keep Tibet in such a tight control and Tibetans in such an inhuman existence in our own country?
Oh, but it's okay because they're savages, right? Isn't that the idea? Isn't that the meme? 70-year refugees. Let's hear it.
Sir, ever since the Yuan dynasty, if not even earlier, Tibet has been part of China. Through different dynasties, different historical periods, I can assure you, during your lifetime and mine, Tibet will always be part of China.
Why are you so insistent on ruling places that don't want to be ruled by China?
No, Tibet is part of China.
Taiwan, they're not happy in Xinjiang.
Tibet being part of China doesn't depend on whether you like it or not. It's a megatrend of our time.
A megatrend.
And you need to accept that before you will feel free to go back to China.
So you don't
visit Tibet.
You sound like you're threatening the man.
No, I'm not.
You said you have to accept that before you can go back. He's from that place.
You live in peace in Britain, that's good.
But he's a refugee.
But if you want to go back to Tibet, acknowledge Tibet is part of China, period.
And what if he doesn't? He can't go back to his home?
You cannot go back. Because China doesn't want to see anyone advocating for the independence of Tibet.
Why can't
China?
No
way. That will never happen.
Victor, why can't China...
This guy's a fucking absolute nutter. This guy's the imperialism. It's so brazen. The fuck? All right.
Rest on its own merits. Why the bullying and the threats?
Yeah.
We're going to break you to pieces, Taiwan. You can't go back until you sign this document or that declaration. Why the insecurity?
Oh, it's
second biggest economy in the world, major power. You sound so
oh.
insecure.
China's security rests on the principle that there is only one China.
This.
And Taiwan is part of China, Tibet is part of China, and Xinjiang is part of China. Period.
And even if the people there don't want to be part of it, you don't give a damn.
The majority of the people live happily as Chinese citizens.
Did you do a vote?
How the fuck?
I will go with you to Tibet.
We're going to go to Tibet and we're going to talk to all the Tibetans.
We did the propaganda tour.
But the guy who's from there can't go there. You sound ludicrous when you say this stuff, I'm sorry to say. Let us go back to the audience. Gentleman at the back, and then this gentleman here.
My name is Aziz Isa Elkin. I am a British Uyghur, except Rehan. And my question, for many in the Uyghur diaspora, we have not been allowed contact with our families at home within the Uyghur Autonomous Region since 2017, when Chinese government started detaining more than 3 million plus Uyghurs into their high-tech surveillance concentration camps. My question to you, sir, what's the Chinese government trying to hide from us? Second, why can't we not talk freely with our families?
Okay. Yet another Uyghur. So many Uyghurs, the same story, the same questions.
I'm always very happy to see wherever I go a Uyghur person, because I do consider the Uyghurs as my brothers and sisters. On one condition.
Part of me is starting to feel sorry for your actual brothers and sisters.
No,
I'll be honest with you.
on one condition, though, Uyghurs need to acknowledge that Xinjiang is part of China. That's a big precondition. If you do not accept that precondition,
hold on.
You are not my brother or sister.
Hold on, so that's fine. You don't have to be brothers and sisters, but can he not talk to his family?
It depends on where your family is. There are indeed Uyghur separatists who want to promote separatism of Uyghur,
but what about the people who are not separatists who just disappear?
Turn Xinjiang into East Turkmenistan. This will never happen. Listen to this. Call your friends to stick to the one China policy.
He just wants to talk on the phone to a family member.
Years old, 7 years I didn't speak to my mother. I want to speak to my mother. I am British Uyghur. I want to speak to my mother. Do you understand?
Literally support one China policy, support Xinjiang being part of China.
Victor.
Period.
Do you have no heart to see this man who can't speak to his 82-year-old mother? Is she a separatist?
I wish your mother is here in this hall talking to you. And
why don't you let her go? So then maybe she could.
But then on one condition, in China, zero tolerance of any separatist movement.
An 82-year-old woman is a threat to China.
It's really.
What does that say about China?
I hope she's not a separatist, but if she's a separatist, she will be dealt with by law. Period.
They're really on the nose,
Victor,
these guys,
before
aren't
we finish,
they?
I have one question for you.
The
We're
fuck?
in the UK. We're in Conway Hall, historic free speech society. Could we do a show like this? Could I interview you like this? Could Rehan come be on a panel like this in Beijing, in, say, the Beijing International Convention Center? Could we do a show like this? Audience members freely ask questions. You take questions from everyone. No one's vetted. No one's threatened. Could we do this in Beijing?
Mehdi, if you ask me to line up all the support, you will do that. Really, I can assure you that.
A show where every audience member gets to speak freely. No one turns up at their house afterwards.
For many European countries, you do not need a visa to go to China. Pick up your luggage and buy a ticket.
I'm not asking foreigners.
Beijing.
Victor, I'm not asking foreigners to come. I'm saying could a Chinese audience turn up and ask whatever they want, criticize Xi Jinping, criticize the government, ask you questions, talk about Uyghurs. Could you do it in Beijing?
Mehdi, in China, don't criticize our president.
So we couldn't do this show?
Unless you
Well, I'm
have
glad you
a
answered the
very
question.
positive, constructive proposal to make.
From
Criticism
the horse's mouth.
I thought this guy would do a little bit more weaseling and a little bit more fucking. Actually, it's not quite as it seems. No, this guy is a full-on fucking. It's shameless. Why do people support this shit? What the fuck? Is this one of those things where, like, Western pro-CCP people will make arguments for China that even the CCP doesn't make themselves? Because I always used to hear from people when I just like scanned Twitter and shit like that. If I was looking at pro-CCP white people, they would just say like it's actually more democratic than you think. It's just like we don't have capitalist parties because, you know, the same way communist parties don't get any fucking leeway in liberal democracies. People just like the government. Sorry, that's how it is. You know, people can oppose them if they want. They won't get that much support because the president's really popular. That's the arguments I often heard from people. But like, even this guy wouldn't say that. This guy says support one China or we'll fucking jail you. Fuck off. Damn, on the nose.
Unless it's positive.
Is not the only goal. Criticism with constructive purposes
is a goal.
Will be a better free speech.
You say the same. Wait. You say the same thing that people should only criticize if they have a solution. I'm not jailing people for criticizing me without posing solutions, you fucking inbred, disgusting, fucking droopy 30 IQ piece of shit. What the fuck? How would a fucking ridiculous statement? W China. That's the kind of support. Yeah, I ban people. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here with, there are two doors, okay? One of them leads to getting banned on a fucking streamer chat, and the other one leads to a jail where I lose all my human rights and shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? Is that the kind of brain that supports the Chinese government? God.
Free speech is a goal we cherish on this show. I'm glad to have offered you a platform for free speech. I wish you could offer me one back. Victor Gao, thank you for your time. Thank you to the audience in Conway Hall. And thank you to everyone at home for watching this episode of Head to Head.
That's a troll. That's a troll. Some people might have to get jailed if I can't figure out this fucking 2600 puzzle. Some people might have to die for this, like the Xander whole thing, right? People need to die for this. Lots of people need to die for this.